Is Tuesday, August 25th. In today's session, I want to share the lost art of front end software engineering. Front end software engineering is the art of making what you see on the screen right here. This uses the Web Canvas API. If we take a look at this application right here, I can deliver something that can help you mix music inside of a web browser too. Look, inside of here, if I just hit play, this is Dumb FL Studio. No, this made it by a good friend of mine, Keegan. And notice how you can create something like that. Also notice how you can create something that would enable annotations, right? So this is the art of front-end engineering. It is thinking about user interfaces. It is working with product and design. In today's session, what I really want to talk about is I want to talk about greed. I want to talk about greed as it relates to product engineering and design, specifically in leadership. And what I want to do is I'm going to use a case study of my friend's application, DumbFL Studio, to be a shining example of what strong front end engineering looks like. And so that by looking at an application like this compared to the nonsense that we see from Y Combinator companies, let's go to the latest Y Combinator list and let's just see a lot of the bullshit that we're starting to see. Now, of course, you never want to go like into the tech community saying like, oh, hey, like what you're doing is not good. But what I do want to point out is that a lot of the stuff is not inspiring at all. This is why everyone is saying that this is slop. I know that it is their job to say, okay, like I'm going to do a specific service, but are you actually doing this because you care? Do you actually do this because you care to be excellent? Like, let's take a look. This is something that's talking about put taste into your hires. And then you see it's like, oh, it's to what? Some random 22-year-olds. This is this is nice, but it looks the same as everything else. Am I really going to get signal out of this? These are some of the questions that we have to ask. This is a very good, smooth user interface. But if I was to compare this to, let's say, super logical. Now, what's the difference in the design here? And the difference in the design is that, oh, this doesn't look like everything else. This looks like it's worth my attention. And there's certain details that are captured like this. I find that a lot of times this is just whatever cheap flavor of the day we have that's rooted based on like some very long drawn out system of saying, well, however they did this, we're going to get the Diet Coke version and put that into a website like this. Now, with front end, you know, what I really appreciate about strong front end is when you deliver an experience on the web. And so I think this is super, super important. So another great example of like awesome front end, of course, is going to be Vercel because they're the company that got everyone to think about taking front end seriously and empowered so many JavaScript developers. So this is the inspiration for today. And so my goal is I'm going to look at my friend's application more than I look at anyone else's. And what I'm really going to do is I'm going to learn from my friend. And then by learning from my friend, what I will then also do is I am working on this application, which is going to be for language learning. Both Keegan and I have a friend, Adrian, who works at LM Studio. And, you know, we have a friendship. And so we're just going to use each other's apps, learn from each other. And I'm going to like work as a front end software engineer on an application. The code is fully open source. And the skill that I am using so that I can do these annotations, which then enables me to better control my coding agent, this is available for your consumption directly inside of the repository. Now, if you guys are wondering what it is I'm doing, this is part of the new business school. You can join our community at aplusactive.com. That's where you're going to get these streams as well as private streams where you get access to the resources. You'll do that by becoming a founding member here, or you can just join the community for free and know whenever we have like a jam or a party coming up. So in the new business school, what I like to do is I love reasoning based on human intuition. And so by reasoning from human intuition, my goal is I want everyone to be able to make $100 a day per person using AI. So that's my goal right now. And as I'm going through my goal, what I'm also doing is I'm trying to think about, well, what are all the pieces of knowledge I have that I can monetize? What are stories I can tell? And a big part of my story is that I'm a front end software engineer. But the big issue is that you see everyone is just putting out dog shit with like Claude that looks the same. Like this is the same fucking style with just some extra details bolted on. It's not something that's really worth reading. And notice here, like the first thing is saying like, hey, is this made for a human or is this made for an LLM? And the expectation is that we're just designing for LLMs and then we're just saying ambiguous words like taste. Like this is literally no way to talk. And in my stream yesterday, I talked about the big reason why junior engineers are not succeeding right now is because thinking that anyone talks like this is so divorced from reality that you will not be able to effectively participate in the real world on teams that already have emotion going, because they're going to need to stop everything they're doing and tell you that this is literally stupid. Um, and so, really, what we want to do is we want to have a standard for excellence. A standard for excellence, like creating something that you see on this page, this doesn't happen overnight. This also doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen by a single person. Well, notice when we go to the super logical page that they are going to talk about exactly who's contributing to the project. And then also notice like they are recruiting some people who are highly competent and capable for of doing this, because I'm pretty sure that this is designed uh, by Alistair. And so I think that this is a great thing that is just kind of worth noting, that even though this is a technical website, they really deeply thought about the details. And the biggest missing detail that I think compares an effort like Super Logical versus a new upstart, like let's say the new class of Y Combinator, is that they're specifically talking about who their people are, what they've where they've contributed before, and they really care to say this is who we are. Then notice they're very simply in like, wow, this is pretty amazing that this fits onto a single viewport. Also, let's take a look like what would happen if I tried to view this in a different way. Well, let me dock this to the right. If I get to what we're building, like this also fits very well onto that screen. The hero is taken care of well. Um, and I still see exactly what I need to know from this. So this is really, really great attention to detail, a super thoughtful design, but then it goes beyond being thoughtful because it is useful. Because notice how in this single view height, we can read exactly what they are building. And then if we come over here, who we are is exactly one viewport again. And then the final who is Superlogical funded by? How do you stay in touch with us? Very nice. So that's 3 screens. Now let's see up at the top. So this is the hero. And in the hero, this captures the top of the F. Then it gets this part of the F. My eyes don't need to go here. And now this gives me a reason to continue reading. And then I wonder, I'm going to make a bet right here on this very subtle detail that this one paragraph right here, I bet you that once I read this and now I've had enough time to digest it, this is going to give me effective signal that will enable me to tell you right now what it is that they do. So let's read this together. We are building the multiplexer for all work. And so now the first thing that, if you try to use some stupid thing from Claude, you would get a very, look, I don't want to be too rude here, but like turn your taste into hires. Like the next time I hear someone talk like that, I want to slap the shit out of you. But now let's go here. We are building the multiplexer for all work. So what I think is so good about this is that now I'm like, oh, who's we? It is so natural for an upstart to say, let me focus on the job to be done. But here, this is telling you that there's a story worth telling and that the design is telling you that we're going to progressively tell you what's going to matter here. I still don't, because the big issue is that, damn, like if I was to explain what it's a multiplexer right now, I don't know off the top of my fucking head. But now let's see how well thought out this first paragraph is in terms of design. And let's compare and contrast that with some of the other UIs that we see. And then I want to come to a point on this. And then I want to come back to how, as indie front end developers, like if you're my friend Keegan, or if you're me, how we would think about using something like this. Okay. So building and operating software today that spans local machines, remote hosts, sandboxes, services, and production systems. So that first sentence immediately tells me, where is this going to go? So like whether I'm an enterprise buyer or whether I'm a developer, I know where I'm going to be able to use this. It has many modes of operations, interactively with a human developer, automatically through CI and background processes, and increasingly through agents working in parallel. So this tells me exactly where I know that I can expect to use this as well. So the person who did the UX copywriting, along with working with the designer to make sure that this passes a very particular type of check called, like if I come over to Google, this is copacetic. So that means that everything is completely satisfactory, fine, and in excellent order. This is what excellence looks like. Now, if we compare that to here, this is very creative and differentiates you against your current competition, which is doing something which, I mean, I get that this is for insurance, but I can tell you right now that once this goes into the actual eyes of someone in insurance, they're going to glaze over and be like, okay, you know, AI's been out for 4 years. This isn't my first rodeo. I've seen so many stupid applications. I make my own stupid applications. Like, you're not surprising me here, right? So in terms of the check of being copacetic, everything is completely satisfactory, fine, and in excellent order. And now I want to point out a unique similarity. So this is great design. This is phenomenal, like front end work, and there's a good chance that they're probably using a system as well for this. Like they're not hand rolling this entirely. Like if I was to read this, I wonder if this is going to be, oh no, this is Svelte. Wow. I was expecting that this was going to be like Webflow. Holy shit. Wow. Wow. So what I just did was I opened the developer tools in the browser, and I was immediately expecting like, oh yeah, like they're gonna be using Webflow because this is a marketing website and they need to rely on it. And then I was like, oh, and then I saw that they're using Svelte, and I was just like, yep, well, that now matches again in terms of craftsmanship. And there's small details like that that are always worth pointing out. So now let's take a look at this. Is my friend Keegan's website, and so he's making an audio workbench directly inside of just directly inside the web browser, right? And this is served on Vercel, also with like Cloudflare pages. So it's a good unique stack. And notice, right now it's like a little bit hard for everyone to see because, oh, if I do this, you guys can see there's release notes. So this is the habit that I wanted to point out. This is a shared habit that I see between both of these examples, is that there's a very big care for release notes of what, how are you communicating with users? How are you talking to them? That's a similar ideology that this same team had with another project they worked on called Ghosty. So I'm just pointing out this is the detail that we want to go for. We want to go for excellence. And through excellence, that's where you want to think about the prior art. And so this is a very well designed UI. So we see this is what this is what great and excellence is. This is my friend Keegan. I also think that this is really great. Just me knowing him as like a one person, indie hacker, as well as myself, who's also trying to be great. So that's step one. Like you have to know what level of standard you're going for. You're not trying to go for a done product. You're trying to go for greatness. So I made a skill that enables me to go through my front end and more effectively work with coding agents. And so what I wanted to do in this live stream is just go through the process of me figuring out what does it mean to like have a UI that's copacetic. Copacetic meaning everything is completely satisfactory, fine, and in excellent order because we're going for excellence. So let's just go into my application, and this is a skill that I have created which enables me to do a design review, and so that's how I'm able to annotate on top of this. And so what I'm doing right now is I want to make an application that would enable me to learn another language. And so as I'm going through this, um, I love this so far. Like I have to say, I'm actually proud of myself so far. In this part of the screen right here, like this is like one of the most unique parts of the application, where my goal for doing this was I want the user to be able to put two fingers and then be able to like kind of read back and forth by touching it on the screen. Because for me, what I didn't want, I have such an appreciation for Duolingo, but I think at a certain point, like it gets to be too gimmicky. I'm not learning a language because like I need a brain rot alternative. I understand that their audience would be considering something like that. But what I really want to do is I want to pursue greatness. And so I have a friend who works at LM Studio. He lives in Paris, And I see that's where there's such a big gravity around local AI. And I love also the software engineering culture on the entire continent of Europe. I have such an appreciation for um, for their commitment and prioritization of the craft. And so this was a big part of the application that I wanted to have, and I think now this worked out quite well. I actually love this design. This is, let's see. So this was progressive disclosure. So now this is resolved. So I love this. Uh-oh, let's see. All right, my server died. Why did my server die, right? So that's always awesome when it happens in the middle of a demo. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work to get that back up and running. And I'm going to run into an immediate foot gun. I'm going to explain why I'm going to run into an immediate foot gun by, hold on. I want to replace. This doesn't have the most optimal functionality for changing what window I show. Actually, hold on. Let's see. Bum bum bum. All right, so it's this screen, which is the main one. Okay. And now, all right, 1 second. Let me just get to the terminal, make sure everything's good. This is right. This is part of the copacetic check because also I have to bum 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 window boom boom. All right, come back on camera. Select the participant, which is me. All right, this is like a total boomer moment for me now because like now I don't know how to get myself back on the screen. That's hilarious. Place with. All right, this is fine for now. But what I'm now going to do is I'm going to figure out how to get this back up and running. And the first thing that's going to happen is I'm pretty sure that like I canceled my Claude Code. And I'm pretty sure that it's now like fully expired. But the thing here is that if I was to check my account, I check my account settings. Okay, auth. Yeah, I'll check my usage. All right. All right, cool. So I downgraded to the pro plan, so I still technically have access to things. This is using Opus. I'm gonna update the model right now because I'm now gonna downgrade to Sonnet 4. Or Haiku 4.5, and I want to work to get the server back up and running. So what I plan to do now is I want to say this is copacetic. And instead of just like immediately typing this right now, what I want to do is I want to give me a quick summary of where we are in relation to our goal, clearing our GitHub board as well, and then give me a set of quick start commands. All right, so I'm gonna let it cook for a second, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cd into the directory. And so for the directory, what I'll do is I'll do ls grep, and then I'll see where I have this. And Hold on, because that can always be just a slight problem is like remembering where I am. So some things you can do is I can just come into shell mode right here and type in pwd just so I know where I'm currently at. But you do have an issue when you work with a coding agent because this needs to run a compaction operation. So that's why I came over here and I was like, I tried typing ls grep ray and I didn't see it. And so now what I plan to do is I plan to ls into another directory. So I see what the directory is. So I'm going to ls and then pipe grep and say ray. And now I know where it is. And so now what I'll do is I'll cd into the directory. The top. I guess what's interesting about Restream is that it doesn't show that I moved to the other tab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to update this briefly, replace what's on the screen by just doing the entire screen, which is going to be this right here. Beautiful. All right. So now this should resolve that issue. So what I will now do is I'm going to cd into this directory. I'll type ls. So now by typing ls, this gives me the ability to see my whole folder structure, and then I'll usually prioritize looking for some files. And so if I need to know where things are, because this is a JavaScript workload, I will usually immediately look at package JSON. And so what I'll do is I'm going to do vim package JSON. And now this will help me understand what are my quick start commands that I requested. And so I know what it's going to take to spin up this workload, and I want to just give it a quick try because and this is the art of like manual smoke testing. Manual smoke testing, I think, is super, super important. I do want to come back onto the screen. So let me see if I can figure out how to get myself there. Show camera. There we go. Nice. So now what I would like to do is I'm going to check on where this is. So this is still in compaction mode, but that's fine by me because I now know what the command is. So what I will do is, and I also, by lsing into the directory, I see no modules is already there. So now I can just do my usual npm run dev. And now I know where this is. And what I would now be able to do is come back to my browser, and I'm going to see this is what the actual workload looks like. You can also see that I did use Svelte for this. And my goal for this application is I want to learn, I want to learn French because Keegan and I have a friend, Adrian, who like has really been inspiring me with just like getting involved with local AI. So that was like my big motivation. And then I was like, oh, also be interesting, you know, what if I would also be able to learn Thamo, and like, would that process also work? So what I will now do is I'm going to check my application. And so it's a nice modal. So I like this. I can do got it. Very nice. Okay, so I see. So the first thing I can see is like, oh, where are the bugs in my workload? And so what I can do is I can be like, oh, I'm clicking here, but I'm not seeing anything. Well, now we run into an issue of how would I quickly debug this? And so using developer tools inside of the browser, what I would be able to do is I would be able to set a breakpoint using the debugger. And I can set the breakpoint based on an event listener. And so what I will do is I will set a breakpoint based on me clicking. So I will need to find the mouse and I will find the click. And we will then be able to see what happens. We'll be able to pause. We'll be able to pause the runtime. Now, what has now happened is I am seeing this is what the current snapshot of our workload looks like across all of our files. And I see currently I am stopped in the actual Svelte runtime. Okay. And I have to say that, now that I see that they're using Spelt for this, it makes me feel really good about myself too. Um, but I think that's just like it's just like sometimes a developer pride thing. I don't know if people still feel that in the age of AI, but I know, that kind of made me feel something. Okay, and so what I'm now going to do is I am going to inspect what is happening on the call stack and what is inside of our closure. And so what I can see is that our current this reference is going to be directly on this div. And so I want to see what my this context is. And I'm like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting it to be this high up. However, because it is the Svelte runtime, then I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that makes sense that this is like a direct child of that. Now let me see what I could do next. And so what I would be able to do is I would be able to, hold on, let me minimize some of these things. And I can now see what is on the call stack. And I see that there's nothing above or below it. And so my next move for using the debugger is going to be to try to click through it. And so I have these buttons up at the top. And so these buttons will enable me to move through the runtime, but because I don't see that there's anything next, I do think that this may just immediately exit out. So what I will do is I will just go one step in. I see the propagation happens. And so the event propagation is happening. So now let me see. This is where we're currently paused in our runtime. And I can see a this reference. And so if I have a this reference, I can now see any other key pieces of information by traversing this object. And then I can see that this is kind of like this is the document object model. And so this data structure is it's a directed graph. It's going to go top to bottom. So I'm expecting that I'm going to see information or I can point to the next thing. And so when I point to the next thing, I'm like, oh, well, this is owned by this URL. Okay. And so this gives me a very helpful clue that, oh, we have an onboarding and assessment part of our router layer. And I also see that, oh, look, there's onboarding, which is right here, which is a special folder. And notice how at runtime, this folder has nothing currently. If I was to now open up source, come to routes, I see onboarding and I see assessment. And so now I would be able to assume that, oh, this is what we're seeing. And so now what I may be able to do is I may be able to more quickly find the caller. So let's see. Let's see if this helps us more quickly do this. And so what I will then do is I will say, oh, well, this is the HTML or the markup that is next to this. And so wouldn't I just say listen, then pick? And so now I found this line. So line 14 is talking about add locations. What's adding locations for? Let me understand a little bit more. And so I see a pointer to route 1. Now this is our mapped file. And so this is going to be different than the code we wrote. I guess we would say that this is a processed version of our code. we can compare and contrast this code against what would be the actual code in the runtime if I now was to open this pathway locally. And so what I will then do is what I will now do is, let's see if I can open this up. Oh, what I would like to do is, I thought Command Shift P is how you search for files, but what this is doing is this is opening up a private browser. So that is not the optimal strategy. What I would be able to do is I can find things inside of files. I'm noticing that if I click this, this is not working right now. This is just defaulting to the mapped version. So what I would like to do is I would like to just get like where that file is and then be able to pull this up. So let me now give that a try. And so we see that this debugger is currently paused. And this is probably where having a multiplexer would help, because I want to have multiple sessions inside of here. And so by using tmux, this would be helpful. I don't want to derail right now, so I'm just going to quickly open up a new tab. When I open up the new tab, I am going to aim to get into this folder. And so what I will do is I will say vim, and then I now can read this file. Now this is going to be significantly different than what we saw in the mapped version of this file. Notice how we have a bunch of imports up at the top. Notice how we're setting global variables right here. And then notice how we have some private functions that are being defined before we get to this comment, which specifically points to a PR or an issue. And so now what I will do is I will come back to my terminal. And what I will do is I'm going to now read through the code, and I will try to understand where this caller is. And that by doing that, I'm going to create an intuition for my code base, which will enable me to focus my actions in the correct way, because now I'm not constantly reasoning from first principles. I just have a known intuition and pattern for traversing my code base, because that's how a human should work with AI, I think, because otherwise it's going to be hard to get it to autonomously do stuff. And so how I'm doing this is really mapped to the Abraham Lincoln way of, like, if you gave me like 6 hours to cut a tree down, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. That's what I would do. And that's how I'm trying to go through this process right now. So I'm going to traverse through the code, and I am just going to see, oh, there's a play button right here. So now I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be a component, and this component is a play button. And so now what I might be able to do is I might be able to reason about, well, where is that component declared? Because what's currently interesting in my setup is, well, where are my components? And now I open this up and I go, oh, it's here. And then I notice that, well, a component is just a function. And so this function more than likely received the following properties. And these properties are going to tell it what to do to play sound. And as I'm reading through this, what I'm noticing is that this is a button. It's going to bind to this reference. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so the main thing that we originally saw inside of developer tools, which is giving us like the final rendering of this and what this reference is at runtime, we can now see something that is quite close to what we're expecting to see. And we can now begin to understand, oh, why did this happen? And did this happen for a simple reason of, oh, we didn't define any on-click function here. Oh, okay, well, I guess we just got to do that. Well, why wasn't that done? Now that's a great thing for me to understand is that we're producing a ton of software. But when it's time to get into the weeds, if I see something like this and then I go, oh, wait a second, does this mean something is not integrated, connected? Are we not effectively documenting how our systems are working? Um, okay. So what I will now do is I'm now expecting that Haiku will have returned. Um, it looks like this is now choked on its context. So this is quite sad. Okay. So what I believe I will now have to do, unfortunately, is probably kill all of my context. Let's see. I will run a manual compaction. But when the AI runs out, notice I can still do my job. That is very important. So I'm going to let that do whatever the hell it needs to do because I'm not concerned about it. What I am concerned about is being able to understand and reason about my workload. And so now the next thing that I would be able to do is that in our workloads, this number can get very crazy of how many commits are here. Usually we want to squash commits and keep this clean. Let's see if my agent kept this clean. And it's definitely like no, because I would expect these to be a lot cleaner and using a format of conventional commits. So now this is going to be problematic because this is really like a garbage in, garbage out situation that I've uncovered while coding with my coding agent. So now that I've discovered that this is like a problem for me, how am I going to respond now? Well, the first thing I know is that, okay, well, I care about this specific problem right now. When I play something, I don't hear anything. And so my next thing is let me look through my code base and understand it. The first thing I'll do is I'll understand what am I not seeing here? What I'm not seeing is what I'm specifically keeping out. And so I do have static audio. I know I have this and it hasn't been committed. So now let me check here inside of my directory. And yeah, Claude's still just choking on itself. Or did it compact? I think it did. So now let's see if I can ask it. Oh, it's just choking on that compaction. You hate to see it. So what I'll do is, as the human in the loop, is I'm going to do model, and then I will come up to Sonnet, and now I will run the same operation, and I will expect that this will have the same problem. I'm going to let that run. I don't need to wait for it, though. So what I will now do is I will close this file, and I will now see what I have available locally. So I have a static folder, and there's audio inside of it. Aha, now I do see that there's something for French. There is sound. Let's see, how would I play this sound? There's a tool for doing this, and I don't actually know it off the top of my head, but what I would be able to do is I should be able to just open this file. And that happened. Okay, now there could have been an issue with this command, so let's give it another run.
Bonjour, monsieur. Bonjour, vous désirez? Je voudrais un café, s'il vous plaît. Un café.
Sounds terrible, but I now know the sound exists. And so now what I need to do is I need to say, well, where do I do this integration in my code? Because I want to support multiple languages. So I'm not going to expect that I'm going to see this exact string in my code base. This would be considered to be a magic string, and I don't want that in my code base. And so now, how will I find where I can integrate this? How will I solve a simple bug that stops me from onboarding myself to the application? So let me think, how would I do that? How would I consider doing that? So what I will now do is I will come back to GitHub, and I will try to understand where in the code base this exists. To do this, I can do a very simple trick. If you press dot in GitHub, this will then turn into Visual Studio Code. This is a super pleasant surprise, right? Then what we can do is we can search. So Shift Command F, and now I can search the whole code base. And I notice that the only place where this is called is there. But I may need to do some string matching, and I may need to consider, okay, there's some markdown files, but a lot of times these markdown files don't really give me signal because they've been written by AI. And so that lack of intentionality can be problematic. But what I can see is that there are, like, look, when I see for this component and this play button that is right here, audio preview, playback is real. So this is during the lesson. So let's see where else this exists. So this exists a lot in steps, and then there's content. And so I do see that there's audio, profile language, and then the lesson ID. And so let me come back to my terminal. And so the line of code that I just inspected, is line 146. So this seems like this should be fine. The path recording will occupy. Pending keeps the UI honest until it exists. And so now I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I'm pretty sure we should be able to solve this one. Now I can give a meaningful assignment to a coding agent. Let's see if it's done choking on itself. No, it's not done choking on itself. Which is fine, because it's currently on manual mode. It's not on auto. And of course, like, who would really want to do that with an untrusted AI agent? Aha. And so I'm like, okay, 66. I'm like, okay. So what I'm not going to do is like, all right, issue 66 is pissing me off because we have the audio and I just tried playing audio in, and now you want to tell it what screen. So I was in onboarding / assessment, and the relevant audio did not play despite our static audio inventory being available. Did we make a mistake in the function signature invocation of the calling function inside of the component? Or is this an issue associated with, and now I'm going to tell it me seeing that, which is in, and then tell it where it is. And like, now this is the thing. I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't have time to read all that. And well, now this is exactly the problem, right? And so I wish I could just one click get a permalink for this. Let's see. Ooh, let's see if this is a permalink. No, this is not. But I don't know. Hold on, let's see. I want to copy as, copy GitHub head link. Yeah, that's perfect. And so now this will direct the coding agent so that it doesn't choke on reasoning, which is in, can you get this feature working and file this incident? Now I can give it this task and I know I can successfully walk away. Realistically, I would have to have auto mode in order to walk away. And right now I don't have that on and I don't really care to. What I will now also do is examine, like, sometimes we may not want to bundle everything together when we're in development mode, because that can cause memory-based issues, which cause the workload to take a lot of time to spin up. And so many times we use advanced scripting using Node to say, hey, spin the app up, but just use mock data. Spin the app up, but don't use this one feature of it, because like if we request it too early, like, just too much, right? So that, I think, is a very important understanding to come to. And then I also love seeing how it is going to interpret me. I find that to be helpful. Okay, I don't want to keep watching this because eventually you get to a point where your brain is rotting a little bit. I love how fast this can go. Um, and I can see what it is going to propose. And I have an understanding of this, of how it's thinking about picking this bug. And so how it's choosing to do this is, it is kind of hard coding this sample index in. Uh-huh. Well, I mean, look, I'm not looking for this as a resolution to my code base. I don't want to maintain these commenting lines. And so what I want to do is say, we don't commit stupid shit like this. And now you have to tell it. Continue investigating until we know the simplest path to resolution that productionizes this feature so that I can use this and show this to people that I know. And so this is steering. And so a lot of times it's going to work and it's going to do the rest of the thinking so that I can then do something that is a little bit different here. And the thing that I'm doing that's a little bit different is I'm just directly showing you this is how I work now. I can direct multiple agents. And so this is going to get into the bigger point of why I kind of brought up the idea of super logical in the first place, which is, this is a multiplexer. So let's just take a quick look at like the original multiplexer. So I'll say terminal multiplexer, so TMUX. And so what I will now do is I will just come to Reddit. There used to be like forums that people go to for understanding this. All right, this is not helping me. I usually like canonical documentation. So this is opensource.com, supported by Red Hat. So love to see that. You know, yeah, this. So while I have other things going on, I just want to be able to see like how I would just kind of do things a lot faster myself. So this is a good organization of the material, but I think I want to see something that is going to help me. Yeah, multiple windows, invocation, having multiple regions in the screen, which I think this is something that a lot of people want to have. Detaching a session, attaching a session, customizing the screen with your own bindings. This is Tmux. This is what I was saying. I need to get a link to the canonical documentation for that. So what I'll do is I want to get to the canonical documentation. So now, like when I'm working with AI, I will usually try to ask for something like this. Um, cool. Okay. Okay. All right. So what I will now do is I want to come back to my terminal. Awesome. So now I have like this first one going. And so what I would want to do right now is I don't want to kill this right now, I guess, while I have a worker going. So what I will do instead is let me just take a look at what's in my package JSON and see what it is that I would want to do. And so as I'm looking at what I want to do, I may realize that I want to do things concurrently. And so I will quickly exit from Vim, and then I will say tmux new. Okay, that did not work. Session should be nested with care, unset tmux to force. So I didn't do what I wanted to do, which is I wanted to have like that second pane nice and easy. So let me briefly take a look at how I would go about doing this. And I'm briefly checking if Ghosty has something that would just quickly enable me to do this. And I think there is a chance that, no, I think I clicked the wrong button there. Okay, fine. So let's, I got my worker still working, so I'm good. Let's see, how do I get like so there's new sessions. You can attach things. You can attach what a session is. You can kill a server. Okay. So you can create a session, but then like what happens when you want to have it as like a pane? Oof. So this is my new way of working where like I have my worker doing the thing. I have enough context and now I'm going to use my downtime to very quickly like upskill in small pockets. That's what I'm demonstrating right now, or that's what I'm trying to demonstrate right now. In roughly like a few minutes, I will have to go prepare for a call. I still do a number of like mentor calls. So I have one of those coming up. And so what I will need to do, oh, look at this. Wait a second. Wait a second. Oh man, I think you could just like right click inside of here and like I would have been able to do that the whole time without even needing this. So I think like my use case is gonna need to grow a little bit just because I'm like I could have just right click and then done all of that. I don't think that that's available in like a standard terminal. So I think like that's just like a feature that I happen to stumble upon. Let's see. Or it could just be like, wow, like I really just don't know. Yeah, take a look. Like, oh no, when you right click, this is a whole different experience. So this is definitely something that Ghosty did. And I'm sure that if I maybe try to reason about that, I might be able to, to find this feature. If I come over here, I would be able to like consider traversing through the code and finding how they do it. Um, but again, you don't want to get too lost in the sauce. My goal is I now have like a super effective way to work how I want to, which is going to be I'm going to use Vim right here. I'm going to see what I need. Then what I'm going to do is, oh, okay, so I have a generate sprite script. So I'm now just seeing like what's going on. Then I have a preparation script. And so I need to know what this sync command does. If that has anything to do with my content or anything like that. I don't like it when something is like totally magical like that. So what I will now do is I see that this is running, this is working on its own. This needed to do a little spell check. And we'll see. I'm pretty sure Sonnet is going to be able to deliver this one small feature before I exit the stream. And then I will be able to use this insight context to continue working on this and continue to build this application for myself. So let's see. All right. So what I will now do is let's open up the workload. So I'm expecting this is going to be in the browser and I'm going to nuke these because I don't care. Awesome. Here we go. I'm now going to unpause all of this because we started with this breakpoint, right? And I was really just trying to explore what was happening. And what I will now do is I will remove the debugger that we have in place. So let me do that. And I see quite a few changes are occurring right now. So I want to quickly just deactivate that debugger, which I think breakpoints. Can I delete that? I don't need to pause on anything. Yeah. Oh, well, that's fine.
Je voudrais un café, s'il vous plaît.
All right, so it worked. So I successfully resolved the issue, and I did it just by reasoning through code, right? Just getting to where this knowledge was, I was able to understand it and then get it off my plate. I still need to review this code because like there's certain things that I'm not interested in seeing because it's going to cause more chaos. I can keep delivering more and more software, but then the entropy for discovering where the bug is going to prevent me from making the progress that I need to. But what I'm really, really excited about is that I have something that is working. I think that this is a great concept, and I'm now getting to be excited about onboarding myself as a user and having a need to build out a feature for myself to be a user and have the memory of a user. And then the next thing I want to do in a future session is dog food, the bonsai model of families that I'm working to do developer advocacy around, because I just started working part time in developer relations at Prism ML, and so this is part of my process of getting to be more comfortable on streams, to also kind of use my platform to just do live teaching that focuses on promoting humanity as opposed to just talking about AI, and showing you helpful ways that we can work better with AI so that we can do really, really awesome and amazing things to super, super high standards. And along the way, I want to use examples not only of like the greats that we see on Twitter, like Mitchell and the super logical team, but to also look at my friends like Keegan and see what's possible. By just looking at a friend who's doing the same job, thinking about them as like kind of prior inspiration, a standard to have, and then moving forward. All right, so that was today's live stream. This is much more focused on the watching me work as opposed to like the actual curriculums that we have. We're gonna have another live stream tonight, which is gonna go into how we won the NVIDIA hackathon over the weekend. So be on the lookout for that, and I'll see you in the next one.